nothing like that.
Okay, you did speak to him?
Yeah, always fine. I spoke to everybody in the house when I came home.
Okay, because you just testified that you never spoke to him. So you're saying you did speak with him?
Well, I made a mistake on that. In other words, I didn't hang around him, I didn't hang out with him, I didn't talk to him, but I did speak.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Have you ever seen Mr. Ellison with a gun in the past?
No, never seen him with a gun, just that one time.
And on this night, were you consuming alcohol?
Huh?
Were you consuming alcohol?
No, I don't drink.
Okay, were you consuming any drugs?
No.
Okay. Do you use drugs?
Yeah.
Okay. You're on probation for possession of cocaine, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you were convicted of that charge in April of 2019?
Yes, I pled guilty to.
Okay, and you're a convicted felon?
Right.
And per your probation terms, you're not allowed to drink alcohol, is that correct?
Right.
You're not allowed to do drugs, is that correct?
Right.
So you do use drugs?
I said I have.
Okay.
I just said I did.
Okay. Were you using crack cocaine that night?
No.
All right. Was everyone else in the house that you were hanging out with, including Joyce Ellison, were they drinking?
I don't know what they were doing. I was with my friend until I went outside to smoke a cigarette.
You were with your friend. Who's your friend?
I told her she got a female friend that be at her house, and I come there and see her.
Okay, so you were romantically involved with a female who was living at Joyce's house, correct? Okay.
Right.
And what is her name?
I call her Ty. I don't know her real name.
You call her Ty, but you don't know her real name?
Right. We were just friends.
Okay.
I didn't say nothing about she was my girlfriend or nothing like that.
Okay. So when you were at the house that day and everybody was hanging out, you said it was you, Mr. Ellison, Mama Joyce.
There was a few people there, like I told you, did this so long ago, I can't remember who I was there.
Okay, but there was more than that. There was, Ty was also there, correct?
Yeah, she was there too.
And
there was some more people in the back room back there too.
There were even more people than that, correct? Okay.
I'm gonna say it was like 6 or 7 people there. It might have been at least that many.
6 or 7?
I'm not for sure, I can't remember. 5 or 6 people, somewhere around there.
Okay, how many bedrooms does this house have?
2.
You work in construction, right?
Yes.
Can you estimate how many square feet this house is?
No. 2 bedrooms, living room, and a kitchen.
2 bedrooms, a living room, and a kitchen.
Yes, it's a duplex.
Okay. So your testimony now is that you don't know if anybody was drinking there at the house?
They all was drinking.
So they all were drinking?
Yeah.
Everybody was drinking but you?
Right, I don't drink.
Was everyone there intoxicated?
They were good, but some of them were, you know what I'm saying? They weren't drunk like he was. They were partying before I got there. I'm just gonna be honest with you.
Okay. So there was a gathering going on before you even arrived at the house and people were drinking, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And people were also using drugs, is that correct?
I can't say what they were doing. I wasn't in there with them.
Okay.
I'm not gonna tell you they were doing something I didn't see them do.
Sure. So you weren't in there with them. Does that mean
No.
They were in a back room, a bedroom?
They was in the front, me and my friend was in the back.
You were in a bedroom with your
Right.
friend? Okay. Alone, just the 2 of you?
Yes. I went outside, I smoked a cigarette, all that happened, then I spent the night and I went on to work the next day.
So you went outside, you said that Mr. Ellison went outside first, correct?
Yes.
And you basically followed him out, is that right?
I might have went out like 5 minutes after he went or something like that. I didn't go right out right behind you.
So maybe 5 minutes later you went out?
Yeah. I didn't go out right behind you.
So he'd been gone for 5 minutes?
I'm gonna say at least 5 minutes.
You didn't see him when you,
When I went out of court, I didn't see him, but I seen him come from the street. Yeah, his car had broke down, so the car parked at the side of the road. So I figured he was coming from the street, he had went to his car.
so his car was broken down, but it was parked on the street, is that
Right
correct?
on the side of the street.
How long had you been outside before he walked up?
Who? Me?
Yes, how long had you been outside before you're saying Mr. Ellison walked up?
4 to 5 minutes, something like that, wasn't long.
Just 4 or 5 minutes?
Long enough, a lot of cigarettes, smoke most of it.
Smoke
I
most
can't
of it.
remember if I smoked a cigarette up or not, I can't remember. So you, that been so, what, 3, 4, 5 months ago? When that happened?
All right, and then you say Mr. Ellison walked up and he said something, but immediately fired some shots over your head towards the roof. Is that what you said?
Well, he fired like up in the roof line. And then, if one bullet went over my head up past the door.
Okay, and you have said a couple of times, you think you fired at least 3 times, is that correct?
3 or more, I'm not for sure about.
Okay, and they were all up in the air,
Yes.
all right? And when he walked up, did he immediately start shooting?
Yes, ma'am, he did. I told you he scared me. I didn't even know he had no gun. Then he came up, pop, pop, pop.
And then Mama Joyce Ellison immediately came outside, correct?
Yeah, she came outside, and he went back down the step, was fumbling with the gun. And when she went down the step and was raising hell with her, whatever she was doing, and got him, I ran in the house, called police.
Okay, immediately.
Right.
So Mr. Ellison walks up, immediately shoots, pop, 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 in the air. Joyce comes out, he walks back and starts fumbling with the gun, is what you're saying, and then Joyce walks out and you immediately go in and call the police,
I ran in
correct?
the house, called police.
Okay, so he didn't actually point the gun at you.
Yeah, he pointed at me a few times. In other words, when he was going down the step, he was pointing the gun at me and stuff. He was out there in the yard, moving around, pointing the gun, then he went to problem with it.
Did he point the gun at you and threaten you? Did he say something? Because you haven't said that.
Yeah, he said some stuff, but I'm not gonna say what he said, because that's between me and him. I don't wanna put that all in the street, you know what I'm saying? He said some stuff that I didn't like, and
Okay,
it ain't true.
so y'all did have an argument.
No, we didn't have no argument, he was just saying stuff, I didn't answer to it, period, I ran in the house.
Okay,
When he was fucking with the gun, he was cussing, ready hell, saying all kinds of stuff.
okay. Now, when you were saying that he pointed the gun at you, but you're moving your hand back and forth like this.
For me,
So he's just kind of waving the gun around?
yeah, that's it, yeah.
He didn't hold
So,
you?
in other words, he could have been pointing at me, he couldn't have been pointing at me if he was doing like that.
He didn't hold you at gunpoint, did he?
No, ma'am, he didn't do all that.
He shot over your head, correct?
Right,
In the air. You did not get shot, correct?
right, I didn't get no bullet on me, period.
He didn't, the shots didn't even go into the house today.
Yeah, one bullet did go in the house.
In where?
It went up through the door, through the roof.
Through the roof.
Right.
Okay. Was that the 3rd shot or the 4th
I
shot?
don't know which one it was. All I know, one bullet went through the roof.
Okay. And do you recall that you told the police several times that Mr. Ellison fired 2 shots only? Is that correct? Do you recall
I
that?
can't remember what I told the police.
Okay. Is that because you were intoxicated?
No, I keep telling you I wasn't drinking.
Okay. So you don't know what the gun looks like, but you know it was a
I
gun.
know he had a handgun. He was fumbling with it. Like he was trying to take the clip out of it or something. I don't know. All I know something happened to the gun. But I think when Mama Joy came out there and walked down the steps, I see I had a break out of it and I was called police.
All right, so you didn't see him point the gun at anybody else?
No.
And he did not actually fire any more shots after
He
that?
just fired only at me. Only while I was outside.
Okay,
I'm not gonna say he fired at me, but he did shoot up in the roof over my head while I was sitting on the porch.
he never shot at you, is that correct?
I'm saying he didn't shoot Anthony, he came up on the porch and started shooting up in the center.
Those are all the questions I have.
All right, any follow-up?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Mr. Jones, at any time, did you ever threaten Arlen Ellison?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
At any times, did you ever, try to fight him or anything?
No, sir. Only thing I ever said to him when we was little, the only thing we were talking about was construction work. And he told me he worked with my uncle a couple times doing concrete work. Other than that, I ain't never had no problem with him. He ain't never had no problem with me. Just like I said, I think the alcohol and stuff took effect on him that night.
Okay.
I ain't never had no problem with him. I really don't even know him. I told you I met him at his other house.
Do you believe that night he had a problem with you of some kind?
I'm not for sure. I think he just drunk.
No further questions.
All right, may this witness step down and be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sir, you are free to go. Thank
I
you.
am. Thank you. I'm not good evening.
Yes, sir, same to you.
You said I can leave, right?
Yes, sir, you are free to go. Call your next witness, Mr.
State calls,
Thompson.
sorry, the state calls Joyce Ellison.
Joyce Ellison, please. Miss Ellison, if you'll come have a seat right here in the jury box. Take your time. Do you see the jury box kind of right next to that screen right there? We're going to put the witnesses there for today. Take your time. All right, Mr. Thompson, go ahead.
Ms. Ellison, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm over here, but I'm gonna speak in the microphone. Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give today on this matter will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, you can lower your hand. Can you tell us your name for the record?
Joyce Ellison.
All right, can you spell it, please?
L-Y-C-E-E-L-L-I-S.
Where do you reside at, Ms. Ellison?
162 Ashmont Drive, Adams, Georgia.
All right, how long have you lived there?
Over 3 years.
How many years, ma'am?
3 years.
3 years, okay. Do you do any kind of work right now, Ms. Ellison?
No, I'm just saying.
All right, have you done any kind of work in the past?
4 years. I don't. You're old. I did all
Okay. Do you recall an incident on March 25th of 2020 in which the police were called?
Yes, I remember something with
Did the police come out to your house?
yes,
And is that your house at 162 Ashmore Drive?
correct.
Is that located here in Athens, Clark County, Georgia?
Yes.
Who called the police that day?
I was pretty problem, police. I didn't think the problem.
All right. How do you know Mr. Alfredo Jones?
I'm trying to try to help a lot of people, and I had one of his lady friends staying there. He was homeless and he needed somewhere to be, so he had been being there.
Who all was at your house that night, Ms. Ellison?
Well, me and myself, our roommate Michael Cass, Joe, his lady friend, and my nephew Arlen, and my 2 other people. My grandchildren even came over, my great grandchildren.
So do you know, Mr. Arlen Ellison?
That's my nephew.
All right. And can you tell us how you're related to him?
That's my brother Herbert's son.
Okay, so, how long have you known Arlen?
I've been knowing him ever since he's been in the world, but he came into my life about 4 or 5 years ago. Since he was a baby,
Okay,
and it was a blessing.
all right.
In my life.
So was he at your house that night?
Yes, sir.
And what was Arlen doing at your house that night?
He came early that evening, fact, us, have an organization this day. He was gonna want to have to be there. Cause he had took his clothes out, for sure. He was putting that, put in his car. So, he was just there with me at the time. That's when other people started coming.
And then at some point, did Alfredo Jones come to your house?
Yeah, he came, he got off to work and he came.
Do you see Arlen in the courtroom here today?
I seen him.
At the jail? Okay, hang on a second. They cannot hear the witness at the jail. Well, okay, we're gonna start over here. Are there any microphones that are over there, do we know at all? Let's try that first. You have a soft voice, Miss Ellison. You have a soft voice, which is fine, but we're gonna try to get you to speak into the microphone, if you don't mind, and we're gonna kind of start over. All right. Let's give it a test. Can you just say your name for me into the microphone? Okay, well, you may have to say it a little bit louder than that. Oh, that was good. Mr. Ellison, did you hear that, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. All right, we're gonna start over, have you heard anything that Miss Ellison has said?
It's barely audible in here, Your
Okay, we're gonna start over with her testimony. All right, if you
Thank
will,
you, Your Honor.
Miss Ellison, I'm sorry, we're gonna start over so that Mr. Ellison can hear. If you'll start over, Mr. Thompson, with her testimony. Thank you.
Swear her again and ask the
No,
name.
she's already been sworn. She's already given her name to the court reporter. If you'll start after that, thank you.
All right. Ms. Ellison, can you tell us where you reside at again?
162 Ashford Drive,
All right, and how long have you resided at that location?
living on 3 years.
Is that located here in Athens, Clark County, Georgia?
Yes, it is.
Ms. Ellison, do you currently do any type of work right now?
No, I'm just saying.
So I'm going to draw your attention back to the date of March 25th, 2020.
Okay, hang on a second, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Ellison, can you hear?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. If you can't, please raise your hand and we're gonna stop and try to fix it. All right, go ahead, Mr. Thompson.
All right, I'm going to draw your attention back to the date of March 25th of 2020. Do you recall that date, Ms. Ellison?
Somewhere, yes, I do.
All right, is that the day when police came out to your house?
Yes,
Do you recall who called the police out there to your house that day?
Alfredo.
At Alfredo, about when did Alfredo get at your house that night?
He ain't got on there for a minute, just about just go.
And do you know?
Okay, hang on a second. We didn't hear that, Miss Ellison. Can you repeat that answer?
Just about just go.
Okay, go ahead.
And how do you know Mr. Alfredo Jones?
One of the lady friends, I knew have a lot of people trying to help me. And he was dating one of the girls that was at my house.
And can you tell us who else was at your house that night?
My roommate, my nephew Arlen, and 2 or 3 more other people.
All right. And can you tell us, how do you know Mr. Arlen Ellison?
He's my nephew.
How exactly are you related to Arlen?
That's my brother Herbert's son.
How long have you known Arlen Ellison?
Well, I met him when he was a child, and then I abandoned him, and I didn't see him no more around 4 years ago. That was a blessing to see him when he came back in my life.
That's good. So how frequently have you seen Arlen since he came back to your life?
All the time, he'll come and see us, every week. I've been, that was 6 weeks, I was working, come back.
What was Arlen doing at your house that night on March 25th?
Well, he had pulled up, and his lady friend, I guess, that day, orientation, and, he needed somewhere to put his clothes, so he brought his clothes and put them in his car. And I know when he did that, he was gonna wind up being out over there to the hospital.
So then after he did that, what was everybody doing in the house that night? If you recall?
Well, my grandchildren came over, my, great-grandchildren, they stayed for a while, and after they left, we was drinking.
So you said some people were drinking. Who all was drinking that night?
I was, he was,
When you say he, who you mean?
Arlen,
And do you commonly drink alcohol, Miss Ellison?
yes, I do the times I do,
Have you seen other people who have been drinking alcohol?
yes, I do,
Do you see people, when they drink enough alcohol, that they become intoxicated and drunk?
yes, I do.
So do you know what that looks like?
Oh, definitely.
And how would you describe Mr. Arlen Ellison's level of intoxication?
Yeah, and I got pretty high, all of them was good, and,
Okay, so can you tell me that again? You said he was pretty what?
he was pretty intoxicated, all of us were, yeah.
And then, at some point, did Mr. Ellison get upset about anything?
I'm the type of person that I'm trying to check out of people with you wrong, so I'm telling you, you need to slow down a little bit, which I need to figure out, you ready to make it.
Okay. And did you have a conversation at any point about,
He's raising his hand? All right. Okay, hang on, everybody hang on a second. I'm trying to fix this. Everybody just hold on one second. I'm gonna try to get the jail on the WebEx and see if that helps at all. I just have the address. That's what I'm typing in here while you're talking. Hang on a second, Mr. Ellison. All right, Mr. Ellison, I'm trying to get a better sound system for you. But in the meantime, I don't know if that's going to work. If you can ask your witness the question again, because it's clear Mr. Ellison did not hear her. Go ahead.
did you have a conversation with Mr. Ellison about a gun in the house?
No, I didn't have a conversation with him about a gun. He didn't have a gun inside my house.
Did he make statements about a gun inside of your house?
No, didn't mention a statement about it.
Did he say anything about where he could get a gun?
No, he didn't.
Did you have a did you tell the police officers that you had a conversation about him, going to get a gun?
I don't remember saying that, as I told you, I was intoxicated.
Is it possible that you did have a conversation about a gun with Mr. Ellison in the house?
He didn't never have a gun in my house, that much I can know for that. Because he didn't bring none of his belongings in my house.
Did you tell police that he said that he would go get a gun?
I said, yeah, I don't remember that one.
All right, so then at some point, you said Mr. Ellison was pretty intoxicated. What was his attitude like inside of your house?
It was all right at first, but,
And then
I remember about me and a bowling in and got intoxicated, and he went outside and said he'll be back. He went outside and I told Fredo, because Fredo was back in the back, and he was doing something he had no business himself, so Fredo was, so he come out the back there, and he went outside the door, and I was telling him not to go outside, because I didn't know how hard the eyes were looking.
And before I proceed, did this happen in Athens, Clark County, Georgia?
Yes, it did.
All right, and do you see Ellison in the courtroom here today?
Yes, I do.
And where do you see him at?
Understand that.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witness identified the defendant.
So reflects.
So you said Mr. Ellison went outside at one point?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why he
Oh,
went
can you use
outside?
your voice, please, if you don't mind?
Yes.
Thank you. She's taking down what you say. That's why. Thank you. That's all right.
Do you know why he went outside?
No, I didn't.
Right, did you have a conversation with him about going outside?
Yeah, I told him, that, if you go outside, I will lock the door for you to stay out.
Or you said for him to stay outside?
Yeah, I told him to go outside, he will lock the door for you to stay out, and now Fredo went outside. And, when he went outside, that's when I started getting gunshot.
Did you have a conversation with Arlen about, taking your grandchildren outside?
Yes, I did.
What was that conversation, Chelsea?
He wanted my granddaughter to take him somewhere, and, he was intoxicated, and I wouldn't let my granddaughter take him.
So between Mr. Ellison and Mr. Jones, who went outside first?
My nephew, Arlen,
All right, and how much longer was it until Mr. Jones went outside?
about 5 to 10 minutes later.
All right, and then how long was it until you heard the gunshots?
I was sitting there talking to him, I guess my 5 more minutes, 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, and how many shots did you hear?
I heard 3 shots.
And did you tell how close they were?
They were real close, but when I jumped up and went flying outside,
All right, when you went outside, who did you see?
I see the Fredo sitting in the chair.
All right, who else did you see?
My nephew Arlen,
All right, what was Arlen doing there?
he was standing on the step.
Did he have a gun?
I didn't see it.
All right. Did Arlen go anywhere?
I told Fredo to go in the house. Fredo went in the house, Arlen stepped inside the door, and I pushed him out. Yeah,
You said who was it that you pushed out?
Arlen.
All right. So was Arlen trying to come back inside the house?
When he was coming back inside the house, I wouldn't let him, I pushed him back out.
Where did Alfredo go?
He went back in the back bedroom.
Did you see if Arlen had a gun when he was trying to come in the house?
I didn't even see it at that time.
Your Honor, I would like to revisit Ms. Joyce's portion of the 911 call and play it back.
All right, it's your witness, go ahead.
Hey, you got your doors locked? How many shots did they fire at you? Hey, are you talking to another person? About 6 foot? Okay, was there a,
Come on, next week, you know,
you don't know who it is?
what we doing in
Where,
He started shooting 3 minutes ago. 45 feet.
Are you? I'm gonna object to the phone portion of just Mr. Jones.
Yes, I'm trying
whose
to find it.
house is this that you're at now?
Well, you can take,
Judge, I'm gonna-
hey, okay,
And I think maybe the station's trying to figure it out.
okay, so if you need a couple minutes, we can take a break, or you can lower the volume so only you can hear it and see where you are. What do you need to do?
Can we have just a couple minutes? I believe I can find that quick.
All right, we'll be in recess for 5 minutes. Mr. Ellison, we're gonna be in recess for 5 minutes, all right?
This, John,
This boy is about to get
Why are you asking a lot of questions? Okay, what is your name? Came from?
That's my nephew, but he tried to use my brother. He been in us, but he tried to use my brother. He and he drank. It's a lady that was telling me he had gone, he better have a gun now. He went outside and he come back with him. And I don't want that, and he drank. Tried to use my
Dita.
It's either that or he waived. Or it would be on August. Yes. We're going to do Lydia, right? Is that okay? They said,
3721.
as long as she agrees to continue.
She signed that waiver.
Yes, she's not getting out. Right, it was 90 days. I think she's still got 25 days. It's 80, 23.
Yes. I haven't signed the waiver yet, but I did go in front of the judge and I needed 45. 25 or 26 days. Okay, sounds great. Okay, sir, I need to say something in confidence. Is there any way he can step into the bubble? It's very important. It's a matter of my case. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, I got it.
I know, right?
Yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't want them using it unless I give them the truth. That sounds selfish, but I don't see that they would do anything with that other than just pretend to be me, and people already know that. I just ran into Clint Cooper's mother, which happens to be, okay, just to be honest, I'm one of those things. It's crooked as shit, and Color Glenn is crooked. So I just ran into Color's best friend's mother in booking just a second ago. So if they just, yeah, she's been booking right now. She's in front of the judge right now. Miss Sherry. Yeah. Who smokes crack? Let's just be honest. And Clint sells heroin out of their apartment in Tivoli. I can do that. Hey, and by the way, did you know that Laney Roberts is still doing heroin while making sex videos with Cutler for Mr. Jim Smith? Mr. Jim Smith also likes underage boys.
Write this down.
as payment for his cases.
Somebody needs to shut her down quick.
Yeah, okay,
I got muted.
Who is she?
yeah.
Lydia.
Yes, ma'am, I can go from start to finish, I mean.
We're still in recess. I'm gonna give this a shot over here.
Can I mute this?
Absolutely.
We're just trying to shut her down. She has no clue she's coming through.
Who are we talking about?
I don't know, she's talking
Uh,
about Jim
oh,
Smith
whoops.
doing drugs.
The other case you have today.
Oh, that's not good. It's a good thing I wasn't in here.
I'm not saying anything. They even, Chrissy got into a fight.
Who is that? Who can we
I don't
hear?
know who she is. She needs to cut it.
I just,
This lady, Lydia Holcomb.
You might need to contact them.
Yeah,
Does Rachel know that she's doing that?
I just went all the way down. The volume.
Let me get over here for a minute.
I just went down volume all the way.
I mean, you know, if we wrote a book about all of these experiences with technology, it would be a really funny book because we're all just like trying to figure it out. Whoops.
But the jail still hasn't connected. Or they still
I
haven't
just sent
connected.
it. I sent it to them,
Okay, hang on.
so I don't know. Okay, now what do you do? I just sent it to about the courtroom. Miss Ellison, thank you for your patience. It's just been one of those days with the technology here.
I just,
So,
She was all over the courtroom. She was
Did I
upset.
just-
We hear everything she was saying about Jim Smith.
I thought that that
Okay,
was
the
what was
jail's
happening,
on.
and I was like.
I haven't heard anything. I don't know what's going on.
Judge wasn't in.
When I went right here and I thought I could hear it amplified, did you hear me say I'm uncomfortable?
Kelly, I turned the volume down.
Maybe we were.
I don't know how to add it. I mean, it says slides in, so it should be on. Oh, it is on. It
Is
is
it
on.
on? Oh, we're on.
Okay,
Judge wasn't in here.
we're on.
Terry Mobley has me.
Oh, have we lost the jail?
She wasn't.
I mainly just heard stuff about Mr. Smith.
I just took a couple notes for.
No, just the jail.
Holy jeez.
Okay, all right,
I turned the volume all the way down.
okay.
Okay, now I gotta turn my
Where's-
volume
you
off.
turn-
Mr. Ellison, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, you are.
All right, it's the first thing that's worked today. Thank you. All right, thank you, Kelly. Council, we ready to continue?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, we are back on the record in the state of Georgia versus Arlen, Tremaine, Ellison, and again, Mr. Ellison, if you can't hear us, please raise your hand and we'll stop and get started again, all right? And
Yes, you.
thank you. All right,
I want to object to playing of the 911 call as for bolstering cumulative, and I don't think that it has said why they are, what purpose they're replaying this, that the court's already heard. So I'm a
Mr. Thompson.
Been entered into evidence. I would like to play it for her because then I have some questions I would like to follow up with her about for non-correct. Also, I'm hoping it might recollect her memory, and I can ask her if it will help her recollect her memory.
Is that the purpose that you want her to hear the tape?
One would be recollection, one would be follow-up question, and I guess the purpose would be
Okay, you can get started with those reasons, but certain music testimony, I would find that interesting. Go ahead.
Miss Ellison, can you hear me? Have you ever heard your 911 call before? If you listen to your 911, you remember some of the things you said that night? Okay. Miss Ellison, I've played your portion in the 911 call. I'm going to play it for you now, okay? Ms. Ellison, could you hear that portion? Do you remember saying something about Mr. Ellison gun and saying he would go outside and get it? Do you recall that conversation now? Can you tell us what that conversation is about, Ms. Ellison?
Here, okay, we're gonna start that over again. Miss Ellison, start again and just speak into the microphone, ma'am, if you can. Miss Ellison.
Do you hear that? Do you hear that? I can't hear it either.
Nope.
Say it one more louder if you could.
I hadn't heard none of that question, Your Honor.
All right, we're gonna start over. Go ahead, Miss Ellison. Is there a hand held?
All right.
Okay, oh, that's good, that's good. Keep going.
His lady friend had called him to come, call me from the clothes outside by the road. That's what he did. See, I didn't invite me. He went away in my house, like he was left him by mistake. He know we go outside and get the stuff. Okay. Told me something about,
Okay, I'm going to object to anything that this woman has said as hearsay.
Let me move over this part with her and I'll rephrase the question for you.
All right, very good. Miss Ellison, Mr. Thompson is going to rephrase the question. Go ahead.
Did you ask Arlen about having a gun, Miss Ellison?
yeah, well, I told him I heard him.
All right, and then how did he respond?
He said something like, oh, you said I got a gun? I said, no, I don't think you got none, but I heard it. And he said something like, oh, you gotta come back. So I come back in my house to the road. And I didn't just told him to lock the door, but I knew that he was got it, and I could read. He didn't know go outside, because I didn't know what might go on, you know. So I ain't worried about it, you know, outside.
All right. When you had that conversation with Arlen, were you afraid that he might go get a gun? Yeah. And so then he did come back several minutes later. How many shots did you hear? Ms. Ellison, I know you mentioned this to me before, but does Mr. Arlen Ellison have problems with alcohol or drugs? Have you seen him drinking before? Would you like to see Mr. Ellison get some help?
Yes, I do.
No further. Thank you, Ms. Ellison. I have no further questions for Ms. Ellison.
All right, cross-examination, Ms. Williams.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just couldn't hear who you said was at your house. You said, did you say your roommate?
Yeah.
And who's your roommate? Okay, and then you were there and Fredo was there, Frito, is that right? and Arlen Ellison was there.
Yeah.
And then you said Frito's lady friend. What's her name? And she was living there? And Frito had been staying there too? He'd been coming and spending the night? And then there were 2 to 3 more people there, is that what you said? And you recall who those were? You recall who that was?
Yeah.
And who was it? Tabitha Brown? Okay. Okay.
My grandchildren had came also. They went there at the time when people were coming in. They already gone. People were there. They don't know.
So your grandchildren had left when the shooting took place?
My grandchildren, all that happened after.
Okay. But everybody else was still there?
I know, his lady friend was gone, and Monique was gone, there was nobody there. Michael passed, myself and Dr. and Arlen.
So when this happened, Alfredo Jones's lady friend that he was there visiting, she was gone?
That's another one, Alfredo was no good. Alfredo had an attitude problem too.
He had an attitude problem that night?
Yeah.
Okay, was he drinking as well?
Nah, he was doing good.
He was doing drugs. What kind of drugs? No? He told you you had some drugs. Who else was doing drugs? Just Frito, or were other people doing it with him? And were you doing drugs? Drinking and smoking weed? And so you had testified earlier that, let's see, you said Alfredo was doing something he had no business doing and came back and went outside. Is that about what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you said he was doing something he had no business doing, what were you talking about? Drugs? And when he came back from the back bedroom from doing drugs, is that when he walked outside?
Yeah, I told him not to go outside. He was in all there and things. I told him I know what, because all you had. I know what not about. And of course I got neighbors, you know. So he said he was going to go out there, he went outside, and I told him to.
You told him not to go outside because you were, because he had just gotten high, is that why?
Yeah, and I got neighbors.
You didn't want the neighbors to. You never actually saw Mr. Arlen Ellison with a gun, did you? Have you ever seen Mr. Ellison? You didn't see him with a gun prior to this, did you? And you were not outside when the shots were fired, correct? So, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? So when you walked out, so you heard shots, and you're saying you heard how many shots? 3. Real fast together or separated? I'm sorry? Okay. And when you heard those shots, you ran outside? And when you went outside, you testified that Frito was sitting in a chair still, is that correct?
Yeah.
He was just sitting there. And when you walked outside, Mr. Ellison, he was not pointing at, okay, but when you went outside, you didn't never see Mr. Ellison pointing a gun at Frito, did you?
No,
You didn't actually see him shoot a gun at all, right?
I just see him shoot it out.
You never saw the gun? And so let me go back. Frito was sitting in the chair and you told him to go inside, is that right?
Yeah.
And did he immediately go inside?
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions.
Redirect.
Ms. Thought a moment ago that you were also afraid about because of what Arlen might do. Who do you think fired those shots, Ms. Ellison?
That's speculation. I don't know yet.
I would agree with that.
No further questions, sir.
All right, may this witness step down and be excused. All right, Ms. Ellison, you are free to go. Thank you. Take your time. Of course you can. All right, call your next witness, sir.
And Judge, just real quick, can I just make an announcement for the deputy's sake here? We've agreed to continue Lydia Holcomb's bond hearing.
All right, Deputy, we're going to continue Ms. Holcomb's. Okay. So we do not need Ms. Holcomb right now. You let us know when you want that back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
State Cost Officer Daniel Douglas.
Officer Douglas, please. Sir, we're going to jury box. If you could have a seat right in there, please. Thank you, sir.
Sir, could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give will be the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Can you tell us your name for the record? Daniel Douglas. And where you employed at? At the Park Area Police Department. How long have you been employed there? 13 years. And what are your duties there? Okay. And how long have you been a patrol sergeant? Just recently, congratulations. On the date of March 25th of 2020, do you remember that date? Yes, I do. Were you a sergeant at that time? No, I was not. Are you a post-certified officer? I am. How long have you been post-certified? 13 years. I'm going to draw your attention back to the date of March 25th of 2020. Were you on duty in your official capacity as a law enforcement officer on that date? I was. And were you in uniform?
I was.
And did you respond to the incident on 162 Ashmore Drive?
I did.
Is that located here in Athens, Clark County, Georgia?
It is.
What was the nature of your response to that location?
It was a domestic, possible fire call.
When you responded to that location, who did you find on scene?
Mr. Jones and Miss Ellison.
All right. And did you speak to him about what happened?
I did.
Did you have a video recording device that day?
I did.
Can you tell us how it works?
The camera sits on a band in my head, and a battery pack that I carry in my pocket. And you activate it, the camera constantly records, but it doesn't save information when I hit the battery pack. Once I hit the battery pack, it backs up 30 seconds and saves the information until I stop.
Okay. So was there a video from this event on March 25th, 2020, regarding your response to 161 Ashmore Drive?
There was.
Can you see the image on screen?
No.
Can you move around just a minute?
Yes. You'd rather sit there and let me stop and take a look at it?
Can you identify this image for us, what it may be?
That's my camera out of my nose, I guess.
All right. Is it a true and accurate representation?
Yes.
What is the video here a true and accurate representation of the occurred on?
Yes, it is. No.
Your Honor, at this time I would move the tennis mark the cover of the disc as states two.
Any objection?
Would move to enter into evidence.
All right, any objection, Ms. Williams? Okay, I am going to admit it into evidence over objection, but certainly, Ms. Williams, if you have an objection, as we go along, I will take it up at that time. Go ahead.
And may I play the video at this time? It is 14 minutes long.
You may. You could turn the volume up as high as it goes so that Mr. Ellison can hear it.
Your Honor, for the first 30 seconds, there will be no volume.
Sure, thank you.
All right, how you doing? What's going on? Okay, let's back up. Oh, yeah, hold on. Yep. All right, well, this is back up. Okay, so you sit on the porch. Okay. Somebody come up on the road. Where was he at when he was shooting? Standing right here. Okay. Okay, so was he shooting at you, pointing the gun at you, or? He shot in the ceiling up in the air. How many times did he shoot? What kind of gun was it?
hold on just a minute. Oh, hang on just a minute. Yes, Mr. Ellison, can you not hear?
I can't hear it now. I heard it for a little bit up to the part where somebody said something about shooting through a roof or something.
Yeah, that's about where we stopped hearing also. There's just some mumbling going on.
Okay.
But please let me know again if you feel like you can't hear it, and if you can't, we're gonna try to fix it, but there wasn't anything being said.
All right, Yana, my bad. I'm sorry.
No, it's not your bad, you're fine. If you cannot hear it, you let me know. Absolutely. All right, go ahead.
Hey, your nephew, where's he live at? Huh? Did he say anything while he was shooting?
Hang on a second, Mr. Thompson? Yes, ma'am. All right, which part were you specifically referring to? Okay, Mr. Thompson?
Yes, Your Honor, it's the same hearsay that was objected to before, and then I picked up with Mr. Ellison's response to that statement. I would argue that his response to the statement about, well, hang on, let me rephrase. I would argue that Ms. Ellison's response back, you better not have a gun, and then Mr. Ellison, Arlen Ellison's response, I'll go and get it, is not hearsay. So, and that is the part that I believe is very important in this case. I believe we can skip over and Your Honor can filter out the hearsay and then pick up with the conversation between Joyce and Arlen Ellison about going and getting it.
All right, I'm going to sustain the objection then, and I'm also going to sustain it based on the admission of the state that they know that part is hearsay and they're going to skip over it, and whatever I heard, which I really didn't hear, I will filter out for sure. Yeah, I can definitely do that. All right, thank you. Go ahead.
And would Your Honor like me to back up and replay that part where she responds and about not going to get it down?
I heard that.
Okay.
I heard that. Go back. If I need you to stop and go back, I will certainly play you.
All right, thank you.
I'm just looking for the sheriff case because, they'll fly around sometimes, you know what I mean? Sometimes they'll fly. I'm just looking to see if I can't find the sheriff. There you go, right here. All right. Oh. Let me go get it. I'll be right back. There's gonna be no further news out here. Okay. Got that. Put these in the pocket. You have an idea on what's a good phone number for you? 2006. 7%. OLN when you're ready. 0547087737. Can I come and talk to you for a minute? Okay. Do you have an ID? On you? An ID? Yeah. You sitting over there like a ninja. I didn't even see you sitting over there. Playing the other hand. My wife. Go ahead. I got another one when you're ready. 0559359143. Hey, go ahead. What's a good phone number for you? 706 280 380 7491. What's your nephew's name? Artie? What's his last name? That's fine. What's the last one we said? All right, so I wanna make sure I get this all straight up. Okay. So, he's on the porch. He's out here. He can't come up here by the car. Go ahead. Tim. All right, so, he said something to you about saying something to his old lady. Who's his old? Okay, you don't have any idea. And he shot up in the air. And then you got up with him. He was waving in the ring. Good one. I already got showcases. He was standing right here. Yeah, one of the showcases was here, and the other one was over here by the wheel. I'm like, collecting. I collected two. They said he shot two, four, three. This copy of the case number. You ain't bothering nobody. That's serious. I mean, we're going to come out here with something like this, and so we can ask the other people call it out. All right, we're gonna write it up. We'll list him as such. But he shot up in the air, but he was new when he shot up in the air. Because he said something to his own lady. You don't even know who his old lady is. He just talked crazy. And he was standing right here on this step where I'm standing. Might have been here. It might have been. Yeah, I found two. The only other, there's a hole right there, but I don't know if that's. I mean, it's possible. Bumblebee be borrowed. That might be that what that is. Oh, it is. All right, so we'll write it up. If he comes back and gives us a call. All right, I imagine he probably won't come back tonight after he's done showed his tail the way he showed it. He probably saw us, if he, walking around, he probably saw us and knows that we out here. He probably won't come back, but if he does, call us back. We'll come out here and try to deal with it. All right, have a good one, buddy.
Follow-up questions. Officer,
Speaking to the microphone, Mr. Thompson, just so
Yes.
Mr. Ellison can hear you.
Sergeant Douglas, did you find any evidence of a shooting on scene?
I found two shell casings.
Do you know for sure how many shots were fired?
They said two or three. I
So,
found two shell casings.
even though there have been more shots,
That could have been.
how many witnesses did you, based on your investigation, how many witnesses did you consider that you had to the shooting?
Just the two.
Okay. Your conversation with Mr. Jones and Miss Joyce Ellison, did they say what the defendant, Harlan Ellison, may have been upset about?
There's two different perspectives.
Okay, tell us what those two perspectives were.
Mr. Jones said it was because he was being accused of speaking to Mr. Ellison's old lady, and Miss Joyce Ellison said it's because she would not let him take her grandson somewhere.
Did Miss Joyce Ellison corroborate information about the shooting that you had learned from Mr. Jones?
She did.
And do you know, can you tell us what type of attitude and demeanor, first let me break that down, what sort of attitude and demeanor did you observe from Mr. Alfredo Jones? How would you describe it?
Mr. Jones? He was a little shaken up, a little agitated. Once he saw me, he calmed down a little bit. Like that previous time. He seemed like somebody that had just had a gun.
Based on your observations, did
Based
on your observations,
no.
was there any conversation about alcohol that you can record?
No.
Did you take the name of the other person that was in the house there?
I did not.
And were you able to identify a suspect in this case?
Yeah, Miss Ellison said it was Artie Ellison.
And with that name of Artie Ellison, did you match up the suspect's name and date of birth?
Yes.
So you make charges in this case?
I did.
And what charges?
It was an aggravated assault charge.
No further questions, Ron.
Cross-examination.
So, Sergeant Douglas,
Yes, ma'am.
how many officers were on scene?
I was the only one that responded to their house. There were 3 or 4 riding around the area looking for a suspect.
So you were riding alone and you were the only officer there?
Correct. Until Sergeant Parker showed up there at the end.
At any point, did you ask Ms. Ellison or Mr. Jones who else was inside the house?
No,
Did you inquire about whether or not there were other witnesses?
I don't believe so.
And you didn't ever go inside the residence or anything like that, did you?
Yeah, I went inside to get her identification.
Okay. At that point, did you see other people?
Just that one female.
Okay. And you did not, that one female, there was an additional female you saw?
Well, that one in the corner was shooting.
Okay, you'll have to excuse me. I've never seen that video before, and at times I was taking notes, so I don't know. You may have to describe the whole thing to me again. I couldn't see. So you went inside the residence, and there was one additional female in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. You didn't ask for that person information or anything?
No,
like
I
that?
did not.
You didn't ask for a statement from that person?
No. At one point, either she or Miss Ellison said she just got here. So I didn't talk to her at all about anything.
Okay. And you didn't question Mr. Jones or Ms. Ellison about whether or not they've been consuming substances such as alcohol or drugs?
No, I did not smell any alcoholic beverage.
You did not smell any alcoholic beverages?
No, I did not.
Okay.
And they were at their home, so that would be fine if they were.
Okay, but it was your testimony that you didn't see to think that anybody was intoxicated, is that right?
That's right, I didn't smell any alcohol.
Okay. And you could hear in your video that Mr. Jones was speaking very fast, is that right?
Say again?
He was speaking quickly, fast.
Yes.
Okay. And you just are
attributing that to the fact that he was agitated?
Yeah,
Okay. And you've had prior dealings with Mr. Jones, is that right?
yes, at very other side of town, yes.
And, I mean, were you aware that Mr. Jones is on probation for possession of cocaine?
Oh, yeah,
Okay, and you're aware that he's a drug user?
oh, yes.
So you found two shell cases,
I did,
and were those off to the right of where they were, Mr. Ellison was supposedly standing?
yes.
And there wasn't any indication to support that those had been recently discharged or anything like that, was there?
I couldn't tell. I just saw two shell casings down there. I couldn't tell you if they were recent, if they were a week old. I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
And you did not find any bullet holes up in that area of the overhang of the roof or anything, did you?
No, ma'am.
That seemed to be where Mr. Jones kept saying he was shooting in the air and he shot up into that area, is that right?
Yeah, where I was trying to determine where he said he was standing and where he possibly was shooting. There were no bullet holes where I was looking.
Okay, so you never found a bullet hole,
No, ma'am.
and you never located a bullet that was lodged in the house or anything
No.
like that?
The only hole I saw, Miss Ellison said it was from bumblebees burrowing in the house.
And Mr. Ellison,
Correct.
and you did not look a firearm?
No, ma'am.
I don't have any further questions.
Let me read it.
What type of shell casings did you find?
For a 9mm.
Do you have a knowledge of firearms?
Basic knowledge.
Do you have a knowledge of how far shell casings are ejected?
Yeah, I mean, in general, some are a little bit more than others, but, 3 to 4 feet.
Yeah. So based on where you found those shell casings, could you determine possibly where they may have been fired from?
It is plausible that based on Mr. Jones's testimony where Mr. Ellison was standing, that the shell casings would have been in the area where I found them.
And would that be in the same area that Mr. Jones described to you?
Yes.
Anything else?
You just testified, it's plausible, you cannot.
Correct.
All right, Mr. Witness, step down and be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Sergeant, you are free to go. Thank you. Call our next witness, Mr. Johnson.
The state rests.
All right. Are you presenting evidence? All right. The evidence. We'll hear from you, or you can waive your opening.
Yes, Your Honor. I think the evidence regarding the events that took place on Ms. Ellison's house corroborated the facts and the 911 call matched up by Mr. Jones and also by Ms. Ellison, as well as I think that the statements made by those individuals to Officer Douglas in the video are also corroborated. Listen to the 911 call. Ms. Ellison states that her nephew shot this twice in the 911 call. She also says that he had a conversation with that gun. He better not have a gun, and he said that he would go and get it. And then the next thing she knew, my nephew shot. And it's very clear that Miss Joyce Ellison does care for her nephew. She said she loves him. She wants get help for drinking. She feels bad about, drinking and doing things with him. That's clear in this video that a shot did occur, at least two shots based on two shell casings found. It's possible that the testimony is also corroborated between Miss Ellison and Mr. Jones that there were 3 shots, but possibly that third shell casing was not found. Of course, Miss Ellison was hesitant and Mr. Jones was hesitant about his drug use, but he did admit that he does use drugs. He pled guilty, honest about that testimony. I would say Miss Ellison was also honest to an extent about using alcohol and smoking marijuana. I think also that the testimony is corroborated that a shot did happen. It's also, there's testimony that Mr. Ellison was very intoxicated when he shot the firearm. That is mentioned in the 911 audio. It's mentioned by both witnesses here today. Also very clear that despite counsel trying to focus on the shots being fired in the air, it's very clear too that Mr. testified in his statements that this gun was pointed at him several times during this encounter, and that he was fearful that he might be shot and felt for his life. And he did make this 911 call, and it is an immediate 911 call. And then, of course, Mr. Ellison is a convicted felon. He was on probation for being a felon, and he possessed this handgun during the commission of this felony. And let me review my notes real quick. Sergeant Douglas testified that he did not consider either Mr. Jones or Miss Ellison to be impaired, and that if you watch the video, they respond clearly to all of his questions and do not appear to be impaired in the video as well. So I would ask that Mr. Jones be found in violation of these offenses on the modified amended petition. And then his probation be revoked. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Williams.
Judge, the state's one and only witness, the alleged victim, the only witness that actually puts the firearm in Mr. Ellison's hand and describes what happened, and is the only witness that the state has who is able to, or supposedly able to say what happened. And Mr. Jones is an incredibly unreliable witness. He is a convicted felon. He is on probation. He is on probation for campaign now. He clearly lied several times on the stand. I mean, Mr. Thompson wants to say he was hesitant to admit to certain things. Well, yeah, he was hesitant. I mean, he flat out lied. He wasn't just hesitant. He flat out lied. He was using drugs. Ms. Joyce Ellison confirmed that. He had said that he had drugs with him and that he had gone to the back bedroom to use drugs and doing something he had no business doing. He did admit that he is a drug user, but he said he was not doing drugs that night. Furthermore, he told this court under oath that he was in the back bedroom with his lady friend, and then walked out and went outside to smoke a cigarette, and that's when all of this happened. To Joyce Ellison, his lady friend had left and was not there at the time that this happened, and Mr. Jones was in the back alone using drugs, and that he was high. This was to put it kindly, a very quick and thorough investigation. For a call where shots were allegedly fired and that result in an aggravated assault warrant, this was the quickest and most vague and shoddy investigation that I've seen in a very long time. Yes, he looks around immediately to shell casings, testified obviously he can't corroborate or give any certainty as to when those casings were discharged. There's no bullet holes. Don't look for any bullet holes that I'm aware of in the daylight. Just
I mean, it's clear from the testimony that there was alcohol and drug use going on, and Sergeant Douglas just didn't even recognize that. I mean, I think it's obvious that Mr. Jones is on something on the video, based on the way that he is talking to act. I would ask that you find that Mr. Jones's testimony is unreliable. It's gone back and forth as far as whether or not Mr. Jones also says that pointed the gun. He says it several times. He pointed it at me, but when pressed, he makes this motion as if he's just like waving the gun around. And when he goes through his timeline, he says that if you are to actually believe Mr. Jones, which I first and foremost arguing that he's unreliable, but he said several times that Ellison up and immediately shot in the air, pop, 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 and then backs up and is messing with the gun. And then later on says at some point that he was pointing at him, but admits he'd never held the gun on him or threatened him or anything like that. Furthermore, I think it's troubling and is a problem with the testimony that Mr. Jones says several times that he was so fearful that he got up and ran inside. But Mr. Ellison, or Ms. Ellison, I'm sorry, Joyce Ellison, says that she ran outside immediately, and Mr. Jones is just sitting there in the chair, and she tells him to go inside. He's so fearful and afraid. I cannot understand simply be sitting in a chair, not getting up and running, immediately. Furthermore, on the 911 call that he makes immediately, as Mr. Thompson pointed out, and as he said on the call, he makes it 3 minutes after this allegedly took place. He sounds actually extremely calm, and just does not seem to be fearful at all. I think that there's not enough evidence. The state has not proven by performance of the evidence that Mr. Jones committed an aggravated assault. That he threatened or pointed this weapon. If the court finds that he did possess a weapon, I believe the state has not proven an aggravated assault. If the state or if the court chooses to rely on Mr. Jones's testimony, I think it knows that conduct. But I believe that there's not enough. I mean, Ms. Ellison was very cooperative with police that night, even though this is her nephew. And here today, and even though she loves him, testified to what she knew and was very consistent with what her original report was. And even she said she did not see Mr. Ellison with a gun, and I don't believe that she is lying about that. But I think that the fact that Mr. Jones is the only person who puts a gun in Mr. Ellison's hand, because he is so unreliable, and these stories simply do not make up. So I'd ask that you not find violation.
All right, thank you. Before I say anything, Mr. Thompson, you have filed a petition against Mr. Ellison for discharge of a firearm under the influence of alcohol. What statute are we in that?
Yes, Your Honor. That is a misdemeanor in Georgia.
Okay.
And,
Do you know what the number is?
Yes. For 1 second.
Okay.
That is 16-11-134.
Okay. I was trying to look it up while you were all talking and then couldn't Thank you. All right. I find that the testimony of Mr. Alfredo Jones in the three circumstances in which he gave his testimony of what happened, the 911 call, the video, and the testimony here today, were all three consistent with each other. I find his testimony to be credible. I find that the state has proved by a preponderance of the evidence that defendant Arlen Ellison committed the new offenses of aggravated assault, and specifically Mr. Jones testified to conduct where he was pointing a gun in the air and shooting it, but that he was waving it around and at one point directly at him, and that he was scared he was going to shoot him. I find that the state has proved by a preponderance of the evidence that Mr. Ellison committed the offense of possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, possession of firearm during the commission of a felony, and the discharge of a firearm under the influence of alcohol on or about March 25th, 2002. All right, Mr. Thompson, are you ready for a recommendation? Go ahead.
Mr. Ellison is on probation in this case for aggravated assault, reckless conduct, 2 counts of reckless conduct, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. This is the second time that the state intends that he will be indicted for this charge as well. So it's the second time that he has now committed this possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, as well as second time of aggravated assault. And looking at his record, those felonies are from 2006, and he was sentenced to 20 years to serve 15 in confinement. That was known as the Red Lobster shooting that I described before at the bond hearing, which was a very scary event with lots of members of the public present. Looking at his prior record in 2000, he has 3 counts of forgery, felony forgery, and then his first felony was in 1999. It was violation of the Georgia Controlled Substance Act. And so once charged, these felonies here in this event from March will be his 7th and preceding felony charges. I think the probation officer has recommended that the balance of the defendant's probated sentence be revoked to the state penal system. Based on the report that was generated and given to me before by Officer Mormon, I think he has about 9 years remaining, 9 years and a month, and I would ask that time be revoked to the state penal system, but also ask that you hear from Officer Mormon if she would like to vote.
Go ahead. Hold on a second. Thank you for letting us know. Let's put up. Very good. Thank you. Okay, if you'll start over, please.
Yes, ma'am. I just currently took over Mr. Ellison's case in April of this year, and I honestly have maybe seen him twice prior to him committing this new felony, and so I don't have anything to offer that resulted in this.
Could I ask you a question, Officer Mormon?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know when he was released from prison?
I can't tell you that.
Okay, that would be good.
Your Honor, I can provide that information.
Okay.
This information is available on the VAC website, as well as you can also do a search for current people on parole in Georgia, and I had listed right. So he was released.
Go ahead.
He was released from prison in 2013 on parole.
2013?
He went back to the Georgia State Prison System in 2018 until that parole expired on a parole violation, and expired in August
certainly going to ask you this, Ms. Williams, but it's fair to say that he went back to prison not on a violation of any kind in this case, because this is R1. That's correct.
It was a parole revocation.
Just a parole. Okay, they never rose to the level of a probation case here.
No.
Okay. There's nothing from 2013 to 2018, Mr. Ellison, and any charges.
He was being supervised in South Carolina, in Spartanburg in 2013, immediately upon entering Georgia prison system. He was, the next day, he reported parole in Spartanburg, and Spartanburg wanted his parole for that time.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else? Thank you. All right, Ms. Williams, go ahead.
Mr. Ellison does have obviously a great deal of time left on probation. It's true, approximately 9 years. And there wasn't anything that I'm aware of that happened between 2013 and 2018. And then this is his first probation violation. Obviously, these are serious charges on the state, and before the time that the state is proving them beyond the preponderance of the evidence, that I would ask the court to not, hand the state's case to them by revoking the balance. They still have to prove the charges if indicted in a trial, and so I would ask the court to consider revoking only a term of 2 years and continue him on probation thereafter.
Ms. Williams, how long has Mr. Ellison been in custody in this case?
He was arrested on May 25th. And Your Honor, I did also...
May 25th of this year?
This year,
okay.
Yes. Okay. And I did just also want to comment that obviously, Mr. Ellison has some struggles with some mental health, and based on what his aunt said, and that she was very concerned about him, and just wanted him to get help, and I'm certainly not eager to see Mr. Ellison go to prison, and I agree with Ms. Ellison that that's not necessarily going to help him, but I understand these are serious charges, but I just wanted to make that.
Ms. Williams, can you enlighten me, or maybe Mr. Thompson? I'm looking at the bond order that I issued on July, and I wrote at the bottom, defendant shall follow all rules and regulations of the bond conditions imposed by the Superior Court in all other defendants' cases. Are there other defendants' cases? Or other than this case? Is there anything else out there, or did I just write that because of these charges? I mean, I don't remember.
One thing we were checking on at the time was whether or not he had a hold or a case from South Carolina, and I confirmed that he did not have a case from South Carolina. But at the bond hearing, I was confused. It shows on his South Carolina record, but that it shows on his record because it's transferred from Georgia to South Carolina.
Judge, I think actually what that was is because, if you recall, Mr. Ellison's case was originally assigned to Judge Stevens, and he had heard the bond determination and given him a bond on the aggravated assault and had imposed conditions, and so
then the other charges
you gave him the probation bond, and so just wanted to make sure that they lined up.
Thank you. Okay. Yep. Wanted to make sure there was nothing else. Okay. Anything else, Council? And I had Ms. Johnson, just so you know, coming in and handing me things, because the amendment that you filed, Mr. Thompson, was given to me with just that sheet, right? There was no back page as there is on the original petition, and I need to make sure that so that was what all of that was. Oh, yes, sir. Mr. Ellison.
Could I say something on my behalf, Judge, please?
Hey, hang on just a minute. Ms. Williams, do you want to confer with your client before he talks to the court, or are you satisfied with him to do so?
I'm satisfied for Mr. Ellison to speak for himself as long as he doesn't start talking about the case.
All right, Mr. Ellison, I'm happy to hear from you. Your attorney is fine with that, but just please be mindful of what she said. You can tell me anything you want to, except for anything about the facts of the case that we just heard. Because those charges are, all right, go ahead, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, prior to this case right here, I was working a job and everything. My son, I don't have a relationship with him right now. They're trying to take my kid while I'm locked up. I know none of this has nothing to do with my case, but ma'am, if any type of way I was given a chance, I would only try to work and take care of my kid. And if there's any kind of way that this case can be, pended upon what's going to happen with these charges, I would appreciate it, because right now, it looks like I'm losing everything in my life that means something to me, and that's basically what my kid is to me, everything. And I just want ask for a chance, ma'am, on this first violation I have in probation.
All right, thank you. Anything else, counsel? All right, I'll tell you, Mr. Ellison, what I am most concerned about in this case. I mean, not that I will tell you that the evidence showed me that you got drunk that night and did something, as Mr. Jones had said, stupid while you were drunk. And I think that's what the evidence has shown today. What concerns me the most is that you know you are a convicted felon, you had a gun. That's serious. I'm going to find that you violated your probation as alleged. I'm going to revoke 1 year of your probation. I'm going to give you credit for time served since May the 25th of this year. Is that the correct date, Ms. Ellis?
It is.
May 25th of this year. You are to continue on probation with all terms and conditions in full force and effect. And that, of course, as you know, also includes the issue about no possession of firearms. You can't have one on probation and you can't have one as a convicted felon. When you are released, you are to, Ms. Williams, let me ask you this.
Mhm.
With regards to Mr. Ellison, do you feel it is more appropriate for him to go to Advantage or to get a alcohol and drug evaluation? Or both? All right, Mr. Ellison, when you are released, within 30 days of your release, you are to set up an appointment at Advantage Behavioral Health so that you can attend to whatever mental health needs you have. And you are to also get a drug and alcohol evaluation. You may not be able to get that evaluation done within 30 days, but that appointment's got to be made within the first 30 days of your release. Do you have any questions?
No, ma'am. Well, I do have one question. Is it possible that I could go to a diversion center in this time to try to at least save some money up, to start all over again?
I don't know that they're taking people.
I didn't hear you, ma'am.
I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not sure they're taking people right now, Mr. Ellison.
Well, is it possible that I stay in the county jail then for this duration since it's a year?
Hang on a minute. I don't know if I got that email too.
I don't know. I haven't had anybody evaluated for it, anybody since COVID started, so we can definitely, we look into it. I don't know if you know.
All right, Mr. Ellison,
Yes, ma'am.
you want to go to the diversion center?
If it's possible, ma'am.
This is what I'm going to do. Let's get him evaluated if we can. I'm going to hold off sentencing. Let's get a report on that and we can bring this case back to sentence. Ms. Williams, can you take care of that for us?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Did you hear that, Mr. Ellison?
Yes,
If you
ma'am.
want to go to the diversion center, I'll give you a chance to do it if they'll take you.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
So we'll hold off on the sentencing until we get that information. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, we're going to break for 10 minutes. I've got to get my battery for this computer because I'm running out. And I see Mr. Brooks there. Mr. Brooks, are we having a hearing or do you need to make an announcement? I know you've been sitting there a while. Okay, very good. All right, let's take a break and anything else I know that we have a very brief thing, Ms. Williams, with, yeah, but I'll let you up. We're running behind. Let's take a 20-minute recess. I want you to have a break, Mr. Thompson. You need to talk to witnesses. If you need more time, let me know. All right, we're going to be on in adjournment for 20 minutes.
you're okay. Yeah, we're good. That's okay.